Okay. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Look forward to taking your questions in a moment, but just in advance, I'd like to address 3 points in particular. First, the evolving situation in the Middle East. Secondly, I'll touch briefly on our meetings in India. And then finally, the work ahead here over the next 48 hours in Australia. And I would like to maybe observe right at the start already thank Prime Minister Albanese and the Australian people for the warm welcome and affording us so much time for our important discussions. Okay, to turn to the situation in the Middle East, and I'll begin in French. Le Canada considère depuis longtemps l'Iran comme la source principale d'instabilité et de terreur au Moyen-Orient. Le régime et ses mandataires ont assassiné plusieurs de civils canadiens et causé d'immenses souffrances à des millions de personnes au Moyen-Orient et ailleurs. Après plus de 20 ans de négociations et d'efforts diplomatiques, l'Iran n'a toujours pas démantelé son programme nucléaire ni mis fin à ses activités d'enrichissement. Le Canada soutient depuis longtemps la nécessité impérative de neutraliser cette grave menace pour le monde. Le Canada est solidaire de la population iranienne dans sa longue et courageuse lutte contre ce régime oppressif. C'est pourquoi nous appuyons les efforts visant à empêcher l'Iran de se doter de l'arme nucléaire et à empêcher son régime de continuer à menacer la paix et la sécurité internationale. Parce que le Canada s'engage activement dans le monde tel qu'il est, sans attendre passivement l'avènement d'un monde tel que nous le souhaitons. Nous adoptons cette position contre cœur parce que le conflit actuel est un autre exemple à l'échec de l'ordre international. Malgré des décennies de résolutions du Conseil de sécurité des Nations unies, le travail infatigable de l'Agence internationale de l'énergie atomique et une succession de sanctions et de résolutions diplomatiques, la menace nucléaire iranienne demeure. Et maintenant, les États-Unis et Israël ont agi sans impliquer les Nations unies ni consulter leurs alliés, y compris le Canada. Dans les circonstances, où en sommes-nous maintenant? Face à un conflit qui s'attend rapidement et à des menaces qui s'aggravent pour la vie des civils. Le Canada réaffirme que tous les belligérants sont liés par le droit international. Nous condamnons les frappes menées par l'Iran contre des civils et des infrastructures civiles à travers le Moyen-Orient. Nous implorons toutes les parties, y compris les États-Unis et Israël, de respecter les règles de l'engagement international. Le Canada appelle à une désescalade rapide des hostilités et est prêt à contribuer à la réalisation de cet objectif. La résolution de cette crise nécessite un engagement en faveur d'une solution politique globale. Le dialogue diplomatique est essentiel pour éviter que le conflit s'étende et s'aggrave. Les civils innocents doivent être protégés et toutes les parties doivent s'engager à trouver des accords durables pour mettre fin à la prolifération nucléaire et à l'extrémisme terroriste. Le Canada continuera de privilégier cette approche avec les pays qui partagent ses vues et les parties au conflit. Canada has long seen Iran as the principal source of instability and terror in the Middle East. The regime and its proxies have murdered hundreds, including Canadian civilians, and caused untold suffering for millions of people in the Middle East and beyond. Despite more than 2 decades of negotiations and diplomatic efforts, Iran has not dismantled its nuclear program nor halted its enrichment activities. Canada has long supported the imperative of neutralizing this grave global threat. Canada stands with the Iranian people in their long and courageous struggle against the regime's oppressive rule, which is why we support efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. Because Canada is taking the world as it is, not passively waiting for a world we wish to be. We do, however, take this position with regret because the current conflict is another example of the failure of the international order. Despite decades of UN Security Council resolutions, the tireless work of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and the succession of sanctions and diplomatic frameworks, Iran's nuclear threat remains. And now, the United States and Israel have acted without engaging the United Nations or consulting allies, including Canada. So where to from here? With a rapidly spreading conflict and growing threats to civilian life. Canada reaffirms that international law binds all belligerents. We condemn the strikes carried out by Iran on civilians and civilian infrastructure across the Middle East. And we implore all parties, including the United States and Israel, to respect the rules of international engagement. Canada calls for a rapid de-escalation of hostilities and is prepared to assist in achieving this goal. Resolution of this crisis will require commitment to a broader political solution. And diplomatic engagement is essential to avoid a wider and deeper conflict. Innocent civilians must be protected, and all parties must commit to finding enduring agreements to end both nuclear proliferation and terrorist extremism. Canada will pursue this approach with like-minded countries and participants in the conflict. And now briefly, allow me to return to our work in this region. J'arrive ici de Mumbai et de New Delhi, où j'ai rencontré le Premier ministre Modi. Ensemble, nous renouvelons et élargissons la relation entre le Canada et l'Inde. As outlined in our joint statement, Canada and India are forging a new strategic partnership in energy, in talent, in innovation, and artificial intelligence. Foundational to this partnership is the new Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which we aim to conclude this year. We're working fast and already seeing strong results. In India, we secured over $5 billion in commercial agreements that will deepen cooperation between Canadian and Indian businesses, attract investment into our communities, and help double two-way trade to over $70 billion by 2030. The Government of India and Cameco's $2.6 billion uranium supply agreement will support India's civil nuclear energy program and our shared commitment to clean, reliable baseload power. We also launched Canada-Indian Talent and Innovation Strategy, backed by 13 educational partnerships between our leading universities. During my visit, in addition to ministerial and official level meetings, there has been more engagement between the Canadian and the Indian governments over the course of less than the past year than in total over the past 2 decades. This is a reflection of the world we face today and the ambitions of both our nations to build and diversify. Alors que nous réunons avec les grandes puissances mondiales, nous resserrons nos liens avec nos partenaires les plus proches. C'est cette mission qui nous amène en Australie pour la première visite bilatérale du Premier ministre canadien dans ce pays depuis près de 20 ans. Pour marquer ce moment important dans les relations entre le Canada et l'Australie, j'ai eu l'honneur d'accepter une invitation à prononcer une allocution demain au Parlement à Canberra. In the coming 2 days, we will focus on forging new partnerships in investment, defense, security, critical minerals, and artificial intelligence. Australia is a natural partner for Canada in these areas and many, many more, areas that will deliver enormous benefits to both our peoples. I very much look forward to today's meetings with business, to meeting with Prime Minister Albanese and his cabinet tomorrow in Canberra. And now I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Prime Minister. We'll now begin the question. Première question, Mac.
Mackenzie Gray, Global News. Prime Minister, are you confident that the Indian government is no longer involved in extortions, threats, and violence in Canada?
Well, the first thing to say is that our approach to foreign interference, to transnational repression, to extortion, the crime of extortion, in all cases, is one of vigilance and engagement. Vigilance in terms of tightening the legal framework in Canada. I won't go into all the details. I think you're familiar with the 6 laws that are still before Parliament and the Senate, which will make a major difference to the powers of sentencing, the bail regime, and tightening our asylum system, tightening our borders, all of which will help address these issues. First point. The second element of vigilance, of course, is adequate resources for law enforcement, 1,000 more RCMP, 1,000 more border service agents, coordination at multiple levels of government, reinforcing resources for our security, our various security agencies as well. The third element of vigilance is deploying actively our intelligence services and the highest levels of government being informed on a regular basis in terms of developments. We're in the process structurally of appointing the Foreign Interference Commissioner. We proposed an individual who was the former electoral officer of British Columbia. We're consulting with the opposition parties to move forward on that. So all of those are structural. Then it comes to a question of engagement. And engagement, to engage, you have to be able to talk to countries where there have been issues, and to raise issues, including at the highest levels, to ensure that the cooperation is there, whether it's extortion or some other form of cross-border criminal activity or security risks. That is what we have done. From the moment that we reestablished a dialogue at the leader level with India, almost immediately we had meetings with our national security advisors. They've been followed up on multiple occasions. We've reestablished national security cooperation. We've reestablished defense. We're reestablishing defense cooperation and sharing of information. In the meetings of ministers, including the foreign minister, these issues have been raised. There have been frank discussions, and including in my meetings with Prime Minister Modi, including in Delhi 2 days ago. Thank you.
En français, est-ce que l'Inde constitue toujours une menace?
C'est une question plus générale. L'approche du gouvernement du Canada, c'est de mettre en œuvre la vigilance et l'engagement. En ce qui concerne la vigilance, c'est une question des projets de loi, le resserrement des projets de loi en ce qui concerne la liberté sous caution, le sentencing pour les crimes graves, de renforcer le GRC, de renforcer nos agences frontalières. Et on a déjà fait tout cela. Et en ce qui concerne, mais c'est pas suffisant, pardon. C'est nécessaire en même temps d'avoir engagement avec des gouvernements à l'échelle de les conseillers de sécurité nationale. Ça existe depuis le recommencement des relations entre l'Inde et le Canada, par exemple. Il y a plusieurs réunions entre les conseillers de sécurité nationale, d'avoir la coopération à l'échelle de la défense, de la police, et puis d'avoir des conversations ouvertes et franche à l'échelle du ministre des Affaires étrangères et à l'échelle des premiers ministres. Et j'ai eu une conversation avec le premier ministre Modi à Delhi sur tout cela à Delhi il y a deux jours.
Prochaine question.
Yasmine Mehdi avec Radio-Canada. Est-ce que votre gouvernement a un plan pour rapatrier les 85 000 ressortissants canadiens coincés au Moyen-Orient?
Nous avons un plan pour le moment. En même temps, c'est une question d'engagement. Nous avons l'engagement avec les gouvernements au Moyen-Orient, au Golfe, y compris les conversations de moi-même avec mes homologues. Premier point. Deuxièmement, c'est une question, pour le moment, c'est une question de la sécurité. La situation reste la situation demeure trop dangereuse d'avoir une repatriation à grande échelle de région, mais on travaille avec les gouvernements, on travaille avec les compagnies aériennes, mais à haut niveau. Ce qui est important, c'est une désescalation de la situation actuelle dans la guerre. Merci.
Next question, Steve Chase.
Steve Chase with the Globe and Mail. I want to ask you about Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Are you concerned about the report in the Globe and Mail this week that showed the Canadian authorities gathered evidence showing that Indian officials in their Vancouver consulate were assisting by providing information that helped with the assassination of Mr. Nijjar? And I want to ask you about your predecessor said there was credible allegations of a link between the Indian government and Canada. Do you agree with that assessment? And finally, what are you doing?
Sorry, could you, the full quotation that you're using, I think you cut it off.
Your predecessor
Yes.
said in the House of Commons that there were credible allegations of a link between the government of Canada, government of India, and the death of Mr. Nijjar. Do you agree with that assessment? And finally, what is the government doing to hold India accountable for the death of Mr. Nijjar?
So all of those questions fall under, all those questions fall under the same rubric, which is there is a process underway this is a criminal procedure. There's a process underway. And my job at this point, with respect to that process, is to make sure that I do not say anything that prejudices the prospect of justice being served. So in that context, I can't comment on the specific aspect, those three aspects of your question. And I hope you'll appreciate that what is important here is that justice is served and that the immense resources that are put in place in order to ensure that justice is served run their course.
Thanks.
Next
Thank
question.
you.
Morning, Prime Minister. Stephanie Taylor, National Post. You have outlined what steps Canada is doing to protect citizens from foreign interference and in transnational repression, but a lot of confusion exists, including within your own cabinet, about what Canada thinks India is doing. So I'm hoping that you can clarify in a yes or no way. Do you agree with your own government official, yes or no, who suggested India is no longer actively interfering in Canada's democratic process and that Indian agents are no longer involved in murders and extortions within Canada? Yes or no?
Well, I'm not sure that's an exact quote.
That is what he suggested.
That's not a quote.
I can read the quote.
I think, we can debate whether you had a discussion that was not for quotation, but if you want to read a quote from something that's not for quotation. These are the words I would use, and it's important. I would not use those words, okay? First point. Secondly, our approach, as I said in response to the first question, is one of, apologies, the second question, is one of vigilance and engagement. And we have made progress, but regardless of the progress that has been made, it is our responsibility to have both aspects. First and foremost, to be vigilant. Okay, vigilant in terms of tightening the laws, vigilant ensuring that we have the right resources at the security level, at the police level, in terms of the coordination, vigilant in ensuring that those resources are active, vigilant in ensuring that we are using all sources of intelligence to direct resources to protect Canadians. And then alongside that, to be engaged with countries so that if and when there are issues or even a sense of issues, that we are raising them. Engagement at the level of national security, engagement at the level of defense, engagement at the level of police, engagement at the political level. All of those. And if you look at the record, if I may just finish on this, of this government in less than a year, 6 major crime bills, many of which address specifically these issues, thousands of new resources being put in the RCMP and border security, huge technical resources also being put in place. That's an odd way to put it, but physical resources in terms of surveillance, and re-engagement, including at the national security level and the political level, so that we can address these issues actually, in other words, today and prospectively, so that prevention is there as well as redress. Thank you.
Next question.
Abigail Beeman, CTV News. I still have not heard a clear answer as to whether you believe India is still actively involved in foreign interference, and if you would not use those words of the government official, will there be consequences for that official?
There will not be consequences for those officials. Look, there are, in terms of vigilance and monitoring, which we do actively and on which I receive regular briefings, there are aspects of those briefings that I can't share in public, and I'm not going to betray them. I will tell you that there is progress on these issues, and that progress is a product, in my judgment, it's a product of the resources we're putting in. It's a product of the clarity of our position. We will not tolerate foreign interference, transnational repression by anyone. And I stress, by anyone. There's a wide range of countries who make these efforts from time to time. And we will call it out and we will engage with it in a way that is as effective as possible to protect Canadians, and that's what we're doing.
Next
Thank
question.
you.
Alex Ballingall with the Toronto Star. In your Davos speech, you said that one of Canada's principles and the principal aspects of our foreign policy is the prohibition of the use of force that's not consistent with the UN Charter. Now you're saying, albeit regretfully, we've supported this action despite the lack of engagement with the United Nations. So it seems like there's a potential, or it seems like there is a contradiction in those two things. So can you explain how we arrive at that position?
Well, there's a few things, Alex. What I also said in the Davos speech and said today, and this is core, is we take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. We're not going to passively wait for the world as we wish it would be. We would like international law to always and everywhere be respected. Canada's intention, Canada's policy itself is to always and everywhere respect international law. So that's the first point. Secondly, I will observe, and I would take up, and it's not fair to your colleagues, but I would take up all the remaining time in this press conference times 10 if I went through the serial violations of international law by the Islamic Republic of Iran over decades, and all the efforts under the international system to contain those using international frameworks and international laws. It is a failure of the international system that this country repeatedly violated international law, terrorized an entire region, and through extension, the world, including the murder of Canadians. Let's not forget that. Repression of women. The murder of 15,000 of their citizens within the past few weeks for protest. Now, brings us to the question, though, which I think is in your question, of the current situation and its perspective relative to international law. And look, the first thing I'll say with respect to that, it's for the United States and Israel to make the case and for whether or not that is the case. And it's for others, more expert than me, non-lawyer, certainly non-international lawyer, who are more expert to make that determination. And that said, well, Canada was not asked to participate. You know that. We were not informed in advance. We were not asked to participate. Prima facie, it appears that these actions are inconsistent with international law. So we would not have been in a position earlier this week, or the weekend, I guess, to take a judgment that met our standards if we had been asked to participate. We weren't. We haven't made that formal judgment. It's for others to make those judgments. As I said, Alex, we were dealing with the world as it is. So in the context of what's happened, what's been begun, we support the efforts to end the Iranian nuclear program and its decades-long process, regime's decade-long process of state-sponsored terrorism. But we remind that international law binds. It binds particularly with respect to civilian infrastructure, and it binds all parties, should bind all parties. We call for a de-escalation. We're prepared to assist in that. Thank you.
En français, M. Carney,
Quel aspect?
le droit international, est-ce que le parti israélo-américain contrevient au droit international?
Premièrement, c'est pour les États-Unis et Israël de faire la preuve si leurs actions sont consistantes avec le droit international, premier point. Cela dit, le Canada n'a pas été demandé d'être un participant dans l'action, tout le monde le sait. Mais cela dit, dans la situation actuelle, à ce temps-là, ce n'était pas clair que les actions sont consistantes avec le droit international. Mais il faut agir, il faut reprendre, il faut que le Canada reprend dans la situation actuelle, le monde comme il est. Et dans ce contexte, on soutient les efforts d'arrêter le programme nucléaire d'Iran et la capacité de promulguer le terrorisme à travers le Moyen-Orient et à travers le monde. Merci.
JP, we'll have time for 2 more questions after this one.
JP Tasker, CBC News. Good morning, Prime Minister. How are you?
Good. We'll take 3 just so there's not a rebellion behind
That's
you.
probably a good idea.
Yeah.
What was President Trump's reaction to
I'll
you
try to be
supporting the airstrikes on Iran?
I haven't spoken to the president.
What does that say about your relationship?
The president's. I don't think it says anything, to be honest. Next
We've
question.
received nothing from
next.
the Americans?
Look, we take a position. Let me just make a clear point. We took a position, not asking for something. We took a position because we view the nuclear threat and the export of terrorism of Iran over decades as one of the gravest threats to international peace and security. And the Americans and the Israelis haven't taken this action in that limited sense. We supported that aspect. That is not a blank check. That is not us participating. That is not us asking for something in exchange for that. None of that's true. That is just a straight-up position. Thank you.
Next question.
Prime Minister Brian Platt from Bloomberg. What we know so far is that Iran's supreme leader has been killed. Many other senior officials have been killed. Do you have a position on what replaces that in Iran? What kind of regime comes next? Do you want to see a wholesale regime change here, or is stability more important?
Well, look, we have long wanted for decades and continue to this hour that the will of the Iranian people is respected and that a government consistent with the will of the Iranian people comes in place. How that would come about, that's I don't have, I mean, it's an exceptionally complex situation. I'm not inserting a war aim into a conflict that others started.
Catherine.
Hello, Prime Minister. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
I wonder if you can just help us better understand Canada's position about what is happening at this moment. There's been a call for a ceasefire. We heard from your ministers. Is Canada explicitly asking the United States and Israel to stop as well, making those cases to their officials? And also, the United States has made a call for the people of Iran to rise up. what is Canada's position on that?
Well, I'll just refer to my answer to the previous question on the second. And with respect to the first, any cessation of hostilities, whether you call it a ceasefire or cessation of hostilities, full de-escalation, it takes all sides in order to do that. As I said in my comments, in our judgment, that will take a broader diplomatic effort. That broader diplomatic effort will very much have to involve the countries in the Middle East that have been attacked now by Iran. Their civilian infrastructure, their civilians have been attacked. And certainly that has been, they've been successful largely in defending themselves. Some of the missiles have gotten through, but the intent has been widespread civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure. So those countries, many of whom are close allies of Canada, need to be involved in any diplomatic solution. Thank you.
Ian?
Hi.
Ian
Morning,
Austin from the New York Times. Has Canada seen any evidence of the imminent danger the President cited for launching the attack on the weekend? And should anyone take any confidence in his view that this will be over in a matter of weeks?
Well, Ian, I'm on intelligence. I can't share intelligence that we've received. It's not appropriate, particularly within broader intelligence circles that we may have received from others. So I can't comment on that aspect.
We've got one last question.
And the timing, the President's President's forecast that this will all be done in a matter of weeks.
I won't speculate on it. What I would say is that, in our view, that the efforts should begin now to de-escalate the situation. And Ian, as I referenced in my previous answer, that needs to involve broader parties than just the United States, Israel, and Iran.
We'll do a last question to Ilya.
Prime Minister, Ilya Grudnov, Financial Times. Do you see this war as a war of choice or a war of necessity? In particular, we had the President saying that the nuclear program was obliterated earlier this year. Now you're saying it was an imminent threat. So we're trying to...
I didn't say imminent threat.
Well, is it a threat or it wasn't a threat?
Iran having a nuclear bomb is a massive threat. It would be the biggest threat. This is, again, okay, let's be realistic. This is a regime that is the biggest exporter of terror in the world, that has for decades terrorized the Middle East, that has killed scores of Canadians, murdered scores of Canadians, tens of thousands of its own citizens, repressed women in its society. It has sought persistently, and you'll remember the JCPOA and all other efforts has sought persistently to obtain nuclear weapons. Nobody has a civil nuclear program that's buried a mile beneath the desert. So that is a threat. The exact timing of it, the exact aspect of it, I'm not privy to all the information in terms of that. I would remind Ilya that Canada was not consulted on these hostilities. We're not part of it. We're taking things from the position that they are today with the actual, and in terms of the desirability of eliminating that nuclear threat and the capacity to export state terror, that we support, but we remind all belligerents of their responsibilities to protect civilians, to protect civilian infrastructure, not target civilian infrastructure, and we call for de-escalation of the conflict.
Thank you, Prime Minister. This puts an end to our press conference.
Thank you very much.
Merci, c'est ce qui m'a fait la conférence de presse.
Thank you.